Welcome, one and all. My name is Jean Tiberio, and I am a nutritionist and a wellness coach. I'd like to welcome you to episode 243 of Healing Outside the Box. Now, as I'm recording this, it just happens to be Election Day 2020, and perhaps my emotions are a bit close to the surface, as Pee Wee Herman once said. Because of this crazy election and the COVID, I occasionally feel like I'm losing it, as I am sure many of you can relate to. Last week I was punching holes with my 3-hole puncher, as I've been known to do, because I printed a recipe and I wanted to put my recipe in my favorite recipe book. Oh, by the way, I'm doing a new ebook with my favorite recipes, and I'll be sure to let you know when it's up and running. Okay, so I'm punching the 3 holes, and sure enough, the bottom falls out and the little white paper dots go all over the rug. Seemingly millions of those little buggers. So we grabbed as many as we could, or should I say, my home health aide did because I can't lean over. So she grabbed as many as she could, and we vacuumed. But sure enough, I tracked the little paper dots all over my house on the wheels of my wheelchair. So yesterday, I was in my living room, not in my computer room, the scene of the crime, and I looked down to find not 1, but 2 of those little paper dots on the rug. The dots were glaring at me, mocking me, because I can't bend over to pick them up. Or maybe for some other reason. I felt a simmering rage building up. Oh my God, I was becoming Lady Macbeth. Out, damn spot, out, I say. So anyway, I took a few cleansing breaths. Out with a bad air, in with a good air. And a few cleansing breaths is always a good idea when we have Carrot Top to greet us every morning. Hopefully not for too much longer. So today I'm going to explain and review the Freestyle Libre blood sugar testing system. I am, in fact, wearing the patch right now. Now, right off the bat, I want to say that I'm not getting paid by Abbott Pharmaceuticals, the maker of the product, or anyone else. I am doing this out of curiosity, and I'm a strong believer that knowledge and self-care can make you a healthier person. Because, folks, knowledge is the first step in the whole self-care ballgame. In fact, let me take a step back and suggest to you that this being the COVID year, you may want to go out and get yourself one of those gun thermometers and a pulse oximeter. The gun thermometers are more expensive than the skinny little ones that cost about $10, but they're also much more accurate. You can get a nice gun thermometer for about $30 and a good pulse oximeter for about $20. The pulse oximeters are those little things that your doctor puts on your finger, and he gets both a pulse and oxygen saturation. And as you might know, if you were following Carrot Top's trip to the hospital, ideally you want a pulse ox of about 95 to 100. 93 or 94 is troubling. So for a grand total of $50, about the price of a few trips to Starbucks, you can get yourself a lot of peace of mind. My personal feeling is that the unknown factor in this pandemic, along with maybe a feeling of general helplessness, has something to do with why we're still stressed out. There's still a lot of unknowns out there in terms of how we can hedge our bets to survive this whole thing. And we also have children or parents to worry about. But we can know our own bodies and learn how our particular body works, so we can get checked out quickly when we suspect that something is wrong. And that's really what this episode is about. So as I mentioned, I have purchased and I am wearing a 14-day Freestyle Libre blood sugar monitor. And while we're on the subject of cost, I have to say that the cost is not insignificant, but the cost is definitely on its way down. Normally, you would have to purchase both the test kit with the patch and applicator and also get a reader as well. Right now, they have an iPhone app that you can download for free that will read your blood sugars off of the arm patch. The cost for this Freestyle Libre depends on the type of insurance you have, so I can't say exactly what it would be for you, but it cost me $122. I also had to get a prescription, but that may not be necessary in the future if you have the cash. And Medicare will generally cover this for diabetics, but you should definitely speak to your doctor first about your particular medical situation. My particular medical situation is different than most people because I have a type of muscular dystrophy. This messes up my metabolism in general because muscles use a lot of glucose and I don't have many muscles left. Muscular dystrophy, by the way, is now seen as a fancy term for weak or diseased muscles. It's more of a result or symptom rather than a disease process. 3 years ago, I actually got diagnosed with a rare genetic disease under the MD umbrella, and it's called hereditary inclusion body myopathy. They actually used my saliva to test me and found a defective gene called the GNE gene. So my GNE gene is mutated, and this gene codes for a protein, specifically an enzyme, in carbohydrate metabolism. This enzyme that I'm missing is called sialic acid. It's a crucial sugar compound found in muscle cells and other cells, I think. Sialic acid does something with cell signaling, in other words, communicating. I don't know the specifics about that. So my body can make muscle cells, but they die off quickly without this sialic acid. Right now I cannot lift my arms or legs against gravity. I cannot wiggle my toes. And if I were to lean in any direction, I would keep on going in that direction. Needless to say, I have few muscles left and few places for the blood sugar to go from my bloodstream, which makes control of my blood sugars challenging but certainly not impossible. So I was curious as to whether or not this patch would help me to pick up changes in blood sugar accurately. So I pushed and pushed to get one of these for myself, and it actually took about a year. For some reason, doctors are hesitant to prescribe these to patients. Right now, I think it's easier to get your hands on one. If you have diabetes, or even pre-diabetes, I strongly suggest that you get one of these. What's cool about it is that you could take 1 reading a day, or 20 readings a day, and it's actually quite simple. You just put the reader up to your arm where the patch is, about 1 inch away, and it makes a noise, which means it's read. So you could test maybe your favorite food item before and after you eat it to get an idea of what that food is going to do to your blood sugar. You could compare toast with raspberry jam one morning to toast with butter the next morning. The possibilities are endless. Now, I've looked into a couple of studies that they have been doing, and it is just as I would have suspected. They're showing that people are able to control their blood sugars better with the Freestyle Libre. I think what's happening is if they get a high number, then they can eat less at the next meal or adjust their meds, whatever they think they need to do. And with all the telehealth medicine going on right now, you could tell your doctor over the phone or Zoom exactly what your numbers are and what you ate on that particular day. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of how this Freestyle Libre works. I'm going to go through the instructions with the separate reader device. If you have an iPhone and want to get the app, you can follow the instructions they have for you there. Now, if this is your first time using the reader, you have to press the home button to turn on the reader. By the way, it charges with a USB. And follow the prompts to set the date, time, and target glucose range. Now you want to assemble the patch and put it on your arm. I'll explain it here, but I am including a link in the show notes to a short video which will actually show you how to apply the applicator. Just click on the link in the show notes and then click the video that says apply the sensor. So first choose an area in the back of your upper arm. Then you clean it with an alcohol wipe that they give you. Then you take the lid off the sensor pack and unscrew the cap from the sensor applicator. Line up the marks on the applicator with the mark on the sensor pack. Press down. You will hear a click when it pops in. Lift the applicator and you're ready to go. So you just press the sensor applicator over the site you want and push down firmly to apply the sensor. Gently pull the applicator away from your body and then feel around to make sure that the sensor is secure. And trust me, I have done this multiple times and it does not hurt. You just feel pressure. The fingerstick glucose testing hurts a lot more than this. Then, once you have the patch on, you touch Start new sensor on your reader device. Oh, by the way, you can keep the patch on for 10 to 14 days, or however many days you like. So once the reader is on, hold it within an inch or an inch and a half of the patch. It will make a noise telling you that it registered a new patch, and please wait 60 minutes to take your first reading. After the 60 minutes, you can test anytime you want. Just press the home button and then put the sensor close to the patch, and within 1 second, it will do and there's the number. You'll also be able to see a graph of your blood sugars in the reader over time. Arrows will tell you whether it's staying the same, going up, or going down. To review your history, you can press the home button to turn on the reader, then press the home button again. So each time you apply a new sensor or patch, they ask you to wait the 60 minutes before you can take the first reading. Then you can take a reading every 5 minutes if you like. As I was saying, this is a good way to test, say, your favorite food to see what it might be doing to your blood sugar. You'll notice that, say, if you drink a soda or orange juice on an empty stomach, you'll see a sharp spike, and then, of course, a sharp drop. On the other end of the scale, if you have a meal that's high in fiber, which delays stomach emptying time, you'll see a nice slow curve. And these numbers would be unique to you, which makes it a better indicator than just looking at grams of sugar on a box or the glycemic index of, say, one particular ingredient. And that's because, as I might have mentioned before, individual foods interact with one another to either slow down or speed up the digestion process. So a sweet potato with fiber will raise your blood sugar less dramatically than a white potato. Fiber slows down the absorption of glucose into your bloodstream. If you have a big meal late at night, say a big bowl of pasta, you'll have some lag in the morning, which means that your fasting sugar may be a little higher than it would normally be. So there'll be different types of curves, depending on the different types of food in any particular meal. The type and amount of any medication to control your sugars will make a difference as well. People who are on insulin know that there are many different types of insulin based on how fast they act. You've got rapid acting, which will kick in at 15 minutes, intermediate, long acting, and very long acting. There are also insulins that are a combination of fast acting, intermediate, or slow acting. Now, I probably should mention this. When your glucose is changing rapidly, the level of sugar in your blood taken with a finger stick may not be exactly the same as the Freestyle Libre reading. For example, right after you've eaten a meal with sugar or any kind of starch, the carbohydrate breaks down to glucose, which goes straight into your bloodstream from your intestines. So then your bloodstream is going to show a rise before your Freestyle Libre patch shows that rise. It may be 20 or even 30 points lower on your Freestyle Libre. That is because the Freestyle Libre is measuring interstitial fluid glucose, which is different than bloodstream glucose. This is known as the lag. Oh, by the way, interstitial fluid is a thin layer of fluid that surrounds our body cells. So that's what the sensor on the patch is picking up. So the patch glucose from that fluid lags behind blood glucose. So when the blood glucose is dropping, because it has been more than 4 hours after your meal, the blood glucose may be a little lower than the patch glucose. But in between meals, the two numbers should be very similar. As long as you're comparing apples with apples, in other words, the patch today with the patch yesterday, it won't matter. After you've taken, say, metformin or insulin, or after you've exercised, the two numbers won't be exactly the same, but again, it won't matter. The important thing to remember is that it's not about any one particular number, but the trend, since blood glucose and interstitial fluid glucose are both moving up and down over time. I don't know about the iPhone app, but if you have the separate reader, It contains a memory that will show you how your sugars have been doing over the past few weeks. And you can let your doctor know, or maybe even send it along on these gateway platforms. If you'd rather do the free app on your iPhone, just go to the iStore, download and install the Freestyle Libre app, and follow the directions. Now, as I mentioned, I looked into some research articles about how well it works to control a diabetic's blood sugars. There was an NIH article about a study in Norway that looked at the Freestyle Libre versus another continuous blood glucose monitoring system, and they both worked well. Another study, published by the NIH, looked at how well it was tolerated among type 1 diabetics. It was tolerated pretty well, actually. I'll put links to both of these in the show notes. The most common side effects were itching at the location and some redness when the patch was taken off. I've noticed a little itchiness maybe once over the 2-week period, and it went away. Type 1 diabetics may need a backup system if it is not that well tolerated, but type 2 diabetics can do the Freestyle Libre for say 7 days instead of 10 or 14 days, and that will certainly reduce any irritation. Or they could just do 1 week out of a month and test their favorite foods that week. You can say eat your favorite food, test just before eating, test again at 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 2 hours, and 4 hours. One study showed that the more often the person with the Freestyle Libre checked their sugars, the better the glucose control over time. And the A1C levels did go down. Now, on the Abbott website, and yes, I know this is the company that makes it, but it's worth noting that they cite a study from Canada, and this is a quote from one of the paragraphs. Quote, additional data also showed the benefits of continuous glucose monitoring. More than 12,000 people with diabetes using a continuous glucose monitoring system for the first time, including the Freestyle Libre, experienced a substantial reduction in acute diabetes complications. And there was some sciencey stuff. And then he continues, for people with type 2 diabetes, there was a reduction of 51%. End quote. Now, technically, I would recommend a backup fingerstick blood sugar monitor for everyone, especially if you have a tendency for your sugars to get low quickly. But this is really good news. There was another article on the Abbott website that I will also put in the show notes. And yes, I know, they are the makers of the Freestyle Libre. But common sense should tell us that the more we invest with both time and money into maintaining a normal glucose range, the better off we will be. And yes, some of this is about accountability. Anyone who has been to Weight Watchers knows that when you return every week, you are more likely to be successful. Anyway, if you'd like to speak to someone about whether or not this may be a good idea for you, or what the numbers may mean for you, I just happen to be a nutritionist, and I can help you with that. I can also give you some encouragement, tips, recipes, etc. Whatever you need. You can just email me on my website page, which is Healing Outside the Box, and click Contact at the top. And please let me know if you got it and what you think about it. I'd love to hear from you all. That's all I have for you today. Be well and stay tuned next week for another episode of Healing Outside the Box.